All right, good morning, YouTube. We are back at it. We have got a quarter-ounce pill head in the vise. I've got an order for 30 jigs, half of them quarter, half of them 16th ounce. It's a big jig head. Uh, I really like doing the big quarter-ounce jigs. It's the paint. The paint really stands out a whole lot more when you're doing quarter-ounce. It blends in good. You get a good coverage. You can the jig head gets hot enough when you heat it up that you can be real careful on how you sprinkle your top coat over top of it. It's a base color of chartreuse with just plain red sprinkled on over top it. And like I said, you can be really artsy on how you cover that, how you touch that up, and get your top coat over top of it. It looks really good when you're done with it. It looks pretty cool. You start going down smaller in sizes, it gets a little bit harder to get a good definition of the two coats. You can usually just like tap it one time with the brush, and that's about all you're gonna be able to do, or you'll end up just covering the whole jig head with your top coat that you sprinkle on. Give it a try. It's a good way to get used to painting the smaller ones and start out with the big jig head. It's a little bit easier to do it and learn how you're doing it and how the paint melts and all that stuff, especially when you put a two coat on. I put a base coat of like I said, I put a base coat of chartreuse on, sprinkle a little red on it. I put it in the oven for like 15 minutes and let the heat from the oven kind of melt it and blend it all together. And then when I get to my protective coat, which is putting the eyes on and putting the UV resin over top of it, that's where I get my protection for my paint, is from that, more so than the oven. If I'm not putting eyes in them, then I'll run them the full length of time in the oven, which is, ProTech says 350 degrees at 20 minutes. Be careful with that, because that's going to vary and it's going to change according to the size of the jig head that you're actually got in the oven painting. You don't want to go quite that hot with a 1/100th, 1/180th. You don't want to go quite that hot, and you don't want to go quite that long with it. So kind of experiment with the sizes and see what. And I hang all mine upside down with the head facing down. And when I first started painting jig heads to put them in the oven, I kept getting a drip right here at the end of it. It didn't, matter how thin I put the paint on, I kept getting a drip. So it kind of dawned on me one day, is the paint actually melting and dripping, or is the lead actually dripping? So I took a small sander and kind of tapped into it, and it was actually more in the lead than it was in the paint. The head was actually starting to melt at 350 degrees. It don't take very long on a 1/64th, 1/100th of an ounce, something like that, 1/80th, to actually just melt that head. It don't have to get very hot at all, trust me. I probably melted 6 heads this morning. Usually it takes me a little while to get warmed up, and I started out with some small 16ths. I melted a couple of them, but it happens. It's part of the job. You can do it with a heat gun. To me, a heat gun just kind of takes a little bit longer, so I like to use a torch. You can get where you're pretty good at heating up 1/100th of an ounce jig head on the torch. You're just going to be there for a few seconds, but you can also tell by the color when you start heating it up. When it starts getting super shiny, it's hot enough. But we're just going to be tying these with some hackle feathers, a little bit of flash. We're going to put some eyes in. We're going to UV resin coat it. And I'm going to start out with the flash in my jig first, because I want it up underneath the feathers. I want it the core part of the body. So we're going to cut our flash about the length of the jig head times 2. So you want the length of the jig head and that much more sticking out. We're going to lay it right there on top. Some slow wraps. Pull it tight from up underneath, and it should usually help keep it from rolling on you. Like right there, make that your tight wrap. We're going to want to taper this neck up. So I'm going to be putting just a little bit more thread up here at the head of that jig than I am back here in the back. You see my taper starting to slowly build up. Let's move that back a little bit. I don't like seeing the very good focus. I'm working on doing this with the new phone. Trying it with the new iPhone, see how it works. My feathers are going to be almost the same thing, same length as I cut that flash, maybe just a little bit shorter. I'll probably end up going back and trimming some of that flash out. But I'm going to take a red hackle feather, and I'm going to stack it right on top of a chartreuse one. And you won't see me usually do any more than 2 feathers at a time. It's easier for my fingers to hold on to just 2 instead of trying to do 3. You want your stems up here at the top to be as even as you can get them. So just cut that little excess off. Just turn it this way so you kind of see a little bit better. But I'm going to start with those 2 feathers right on the top, which would actually be the bottom of the jig head shaft, the hook shaft. A couple loose wraps. Check and make sure it's still running the way I want it to, and then we're going to pull it tight. And kind of the same way, you're going to make your tight wrap from up underneath. We're going to wrap it like that, all the way back up to the head. And like I said, since I want that tapered neck, I'm going to spend a little more time wrapping up there than I am the rest of the body. It's going to kind of help in the long run to get the profile of that jig that I want. And I'm going to take another red. I'm going to take another red and another chartreuse, and I'm going to tie another one in on each side. And it's just about as long as all the rest of them. I usually try to get all my feathers lined out, trimmed up, ready to go before I start tying. And I usually end up having to cut more in the process of doing it because, you know, I don't have a set. I put 5 hackle feathers in this one every single time. I don't really do it like that. I kind of do it according to how the jig's looking, how it's tying on the way through. I don't usually use any more than 3 or 4, but I mean, you can definitely get into tying jigs like that where you get a jig and you like the profile, keep track of it, write it down off to the side somewhere. For this style jig, I use this much hackle, I use this much flash, you know, all the way down to your thread wraps. I do 22 thread wraps, or, you know, whatever. There's a lot of guys do it like that. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to try to catch up all the low spots that need to be filled back in. Just like so. I posted a video the other day. I got hit with the copyright infringement kind of deal for using music that YouTube let me use, and I was going to battle them, going to fight them, going to risk losing my channel. The comments that I got back from the retaliation video, I guess you could say, I changed my mind. There was a lot of people that convinced me not to do it. Don't put the music in. They were fine without the music, so that's the route I'm going. I'm not putting any music in. And then I got a comment from Small Jaw, and I want to thank him for that. I don't know why, I just kind of rang a bell, you know. Hate to see you lose your YouTube channel over something petty, and he was right. It's petty. It's dumb. It's stupid. So I went back. I edited that. I took that video completely off. I took them both off. We'll just start again. We'll just, no music at all. So when I do edit it, I will do my intro with Plateau Fly Shop, Outlaw Rods, Hairline Dubbing, and then just normal video. If you miss the music, you can sing along at the beginning or something like that. It's about the way we're going to do that. So somebody else I want to give a shout out to. I was sitting down here the other day watching, I had YouTube going, and it's just scrolling through all the videos and stuff, and I get to a guy, he's tying jigs and got a peak vise. He's wrapping them up, and all of a sudden he, you know, giving a shout out to, you know, where he learned how to tie jigs and all that, and he brought up my channel name, said he learned a lot from watching me. I want to give a shout out to Spanx Jigs. If you haven't watched him on YouTube, you might want to check him out. He does an awesome job, but I want to say thank you for giving me the call out. I appreciate that. It was totally out of the blue. Just sitting there watching it, and, you know, I'm listening to him, and then he, you know, starts giving me compliments and all that, and I really appreciate that. That kind of meant a lot when I seen that. So thank you to Spanx Jigs. I appreciate that. I try to comment on your videos, but you got your comments turned off. If you go back in and edit when you do your video, click the box that says not made for kids, and it will let your comment section turn back on. But I did. I appreciated that. That was really cool. I just was not even expecting it. So we get to where we got the jig head all tied up. You got your feathers where you want it. You got your flash where you want it. These jigs are going to somebody else. They're not mine. So I'm going to leave the flash long. I'm going to let him decide if he wants to keep the flash longer, if he wants to trim the flash off. Some jigs I'll do that. Rubber tail jigs, I will give them a little bit longer length than what they need to be for my style of fishing. But I'll leave it a little bit long, and you know, if somebody wants to trim them, they can trim them. I don't really recommend trimming the hackle or the bucktail. It just kind of gives it that square, oddball look, kind of, sort of. I like the pointy tips. I like the pointy feathers. I like the bucktail when it's kind of erratic and stuff like that. But we're going to put a good coat of UV resin over top this. Brush over top those eyes. We're going to let that drip kind of run just a little bit. And I was testing making videos now with the iPhone 13. I ain't quite got the focus thing down because I should have came in a lot better than that, I would think. At the end of this video here, I'm going to kind of play with it a little bit. We get your UV resin coat. Get it on there kind of thick. You want it to keep that wet, everything sealed up look. Kind of rotate your jig a little bit, make sure it looks like it's covered. I can see some thread poking through right there. We're going to give another coat. Brush it up against your head when you're putting it on. Make sure you do that coat right there, and what that'll do is that'll seal that whole neck to that head. It becomes one piece after that. And that UV resin, if you're using the thin formula or the thick formula, it'll penetrate down through that thread. Let the gravity do the work with the UV resin. Let it kind of slowly go all the way around it. Hit it with your UV light. Get it good and tacky. Get it to where it's kind of set up and it's not going to run anymore. And then you can switch it over and put it back in your, I use a fingernail lamp. I put it back inside of. That's what we got. Makes a pretty cool looking jig. They come out neat. I started tying these, and basically that's almost all I sell now are jigs of this style. But I like the way they come out. They're flashy, they're cool, they're shiny. The UV resin gives a really good protection on the head, really hardens it. And in my opinion, better than the oven does. I trust this a lot more than I do the heat from the oven. That's all I got. I want to say thank you to all the subscribers. It means a lot. All the comments after had my little video about, you know, them whatever, doing whatever. Anyway, it's in the past. Forget about it. Please like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Comments, anything. Hit that bell. That is all I got, folks. I'm going to try to get this uploaded before I go to work. Y'all have a good one, and I will see you next time.